Once upon a time, a very distressed man went to a sage and said, "I am very unhappy with my life. I am unable to make my wife, children, or family happy. I cannot do anything for myself either. Sometimes I even think about ending my life. You do so much penance and meditation. Can you show me a way to overcome my bad times? My situation is very dire. Even arranging 2 meals a day has become very difficult for me. Please tell me how I can survive in such times and how I can make my family happy. Please suggest a simple method so that I can understand it easily, as I am not very educated. If you speak in high knowledge, I may never understand it." Hearing this, the sage smiled and said, "You can do one thing. Look towards that high mountain. There is a temple there, and near that temple there is an ant hill where thousands of ants live. It may sound strange, but these ants ruin the temple ground. They destroy the fertility of the soil so that no tree or grass can grow there. Here's what you should do. For 7 days, go to that mountain and demolish the ant hill every day. Break it down whenever you see it around the temple, but remember, no ant should be killed during this process. Try to understand this." The young man left, perhaps not understanding why the sage was making him destroy the ants' homes. He wondered why a sage would make someone destroy the homes of such small creatures and cause them harm. But he decided to follow the sage's instructions and started going to the mountain the next day. On the first day, when he reached the mountain, he saw many ants gathering food. All the ants were lined up, carrying tiny grains of food to their homes. Seeing this, the young man felt weak. He thought about how these ants were working so hard to fill their homes, and here he was about to destroy their homes. But recalling the sage's words, he began to dismantle the ant hill. Soon, there was chaos among the ants. They scattered in all directions to save themselves. The ant hill was soon destroyed, and all the ants had fled. Feeling dejected, the young man returned home. He was troubled and filled with regret. As he lay in bed that night, he thought about the destruction he had caused. With the ant hill demolished, he questioned the purpose of going back. He had already fulfilled the sage's instruction, but then he decided to return the next day. The next morning, he went back to the mountain and reached the place where he had destroyed the ant hill. To his astonishment, the ants had rebuilt their home in the same spot, and they were gathering food again. He wondered how the ants could rebuild so quickly in the same place where their home had been destroyed. Laughing at their persistence, he remembered the sage's words and decided to destroy their new home as well. He did so, and again the ants scattered and their new home was demolished. This time he was content that he had thoroughly destroyed their home, thinking they would not rebuild. He even poured cold water over the spot to prevent them from rebuilding. That night, before sleeping, he thought again about whether the sage's instructions were right. He questioned whether destroying the ants' homes was appropriate for a sage. He wondered what would happen if the sage was not truly enlightened and was just fooling him. But he decided to finish the task and then find out why the sage had given him these instructions. The next day, he returned to the mountain. Again, he was surprised to see that the ants had built yet another new home in a different location, even bigger and more elaborate than before. The ants were working with even greater energy, gathering food and building their new house. The young man was amazed by their perseverance. Despite his repeated efforts to drive them away, the ants kept rebuilding. He was stunned by their resilience. This time, in anger, he started destroying their new home. Unfortunately, some ants were crushed under his feet. Seeing the harm he had caused, he felt remorseful and cried as he returned home. That night, he thought about his actions and felt he was being too cruel, not even giving the ants a chance to settle anywhere. Determined to make amends, he decided to help the ants. The next morning, he brought some flour from his home and went back to the mountain. He now felt a sense of compassion and wanted to help the ants. When he arrived, he saw the ants busy rebuilding their home and gathering food. With a compassionate heart, he fed them the flour he had brought. For the next 7 days, he continued to visit the ants, feeding them daily. After 7 days, he went back to the sage, folded his hands and said, "O sage, please forgive me. I tried very hard to destroy the ants' homes. I did it not once but 4 times. Eventually, I could not destroy their homes anymore. I understand that I have not fulfilled your task, and you might not answer my questions about overcoming my bad times. But I feel that what I did was right. Please allow me to return home." The sage, smiling, said, "Oh, my child, where are you going? Stay a little longer and have some refreshments before you leave." The sage brought water for him and then asked, "Tell me, why couldn't you destroy the ants' homes? They are so small and you are so big. Where is your strength, your might?" The young man replied, "O sage, I destroyed the ants' homes repeatedly. Once, in my anger, I even caused them harm. But the day I caused them harm, I realized that I was inflicting unnecessary suffering on them. From that day on, I decided to help them instead of harming them." The sage said, "That is the lesson to be learned. Even a small ant teaches us about life. I did not ask you to destroy the ants' homes for any reason. I wanted you to learn something from them. What did you learn from the ants?" The young man recounted the entire story. After listening, the sage said with a smile, "The first lesson from the ants is that no matter how many times you tried to destroy their homes, they rebuilt each time. They never gave up. If they had given up, you would not have found them there. Life is about perseverance. Humans often give up after one or two failures, but animals never end their lives even in the harshest conditions. They keep struggling for survival. On the other hand, humans, after facing a few setbacks, often lose hope and give up. Life is about continuous effort, and death is the final rest. Do not stop working before death. If one house is destroyed, try to build another. Those who keep trying never fail. This is what you saw in the ants. They are so small, yet their spirit is immense. The second lesson is that when we face difficult times, we often feel that these times will never end and will ruin our lives. These thoughts, which have no real basis, make us depressed and cause us to stop trying. But nature may keep challenging us, but as long as we keep trying, nature will eventually yield. You saw that you tried repeatedly to destroy the ants' homes, but eventually you ended up helping them. Similarly, if you persist in your efforts, nature will eventually reward you with everything you desire. So remember these two lessons. Keep working diligently and know that eventually, nature will reward your efforts. I hope you have learned a lot from this story. See you in the next video.